Hello, my name is Laura Victoria Ward, and I am here to just do a quick session of micro movement and talk about what that is and why it's valuable and what it does for us. So, micro movement is small little movement. It hydrates the fascia, it moves the interior of our body, and we can really do it in any way, in any part of our body, at any time. And if we were talking in terms of movement analysis, we'd say, oh, it's an underlying shape flow support, or even it's a core support, or it could be a distal support, something that's happening on the edges of our body. So I am going to do this seated and talk about it as I'm doing it. So in continuum, there is something they call tissue prep in continuum movement. And that means that we're getting ready for the tissue to do something else, just awakening it up, enlivening it. And if for people who studied sort of non-dual meditation or vipassana, where you've taken your mind into your body and followed sensation, it's like we're taking our minds into our body and following a sensation, but we're allowing it freedom and movement. So we're not trying to stay still like we would do in our mountain pose if we were meditating, but we're allowing this freedom of movement within our tissue. And so that could be like movement where we allow ourselves to move forward and backward, which would sort of be the most basic level of movement, or side, also very basic, or we could have a little bit of a twist happening. So these are three very basic ways, and it could be small. It could be so small that nobody could see it. But the idea is tuning into the sensation of it so we can feel it, so we can feel this internal aliveness happening. It's like you're just dropping your awareness into the tissue of your body, and then you're allowing it to sort of percolate, to mobilize, and we're listening into I want to say the desire of the body for movement. So we've been taught in our lives often to not move, like sit still, calm down, control yourself, right? This is the exact opposite of that. This is about allowing the intelligence of the body to sort of come forward and speak to you and listening to that. And maybe it takes a long time to be able to tune into what that is in your own body. I mean, I've been doing somatic practices for over 25 years and was laying on the ground at 10 years old on my dad's soccer team doing transcendental meditation. So I've had a lifetime of this. And just to throw that out there, I'm now 51. And I use this as a means of healing injuries, of bringing aliveness and awareness into my body, and also allowing myself to dial down into my parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the rest and digest, soothe and settle part of your nervous system. And that's the place where your body is engaged in processing. So ideally, when we're sleeping, our body drops down into that place where we can process, but we can also bring it online through meditation practices, through somatic movement practices, through breath and sounding practices. There's many ways to do it. So for me, when I tune into the sort of inner desire for movement, and I keep moving just a little as I'm talking through this, it allows me to really come into myself, to come into sensation, and also to start to discern, where am I holding tension? Where are the holding patterns in my body that may be restrictive? And it's nice to be very gentle with our relationship to those holding patterns because they have gotten us here. So in Irmgard Bartenieff wrote a book called Coping with the Environment. And it's like how our body learns to be a person, how we learn to hold ourselves in relationship to others, in relationship to ourselves, in relationship to what we're doing. And in all that kind of holding pattern, sometimes there are things that we could let go of that would make it easier to be in our bodies, easier to be human, easier to feel connected, not feel disconnected. So I think I used to use internal feeling as a way of disassociating. I used to have a lot of stomach problems, a lot of IBS and stuff like that. And so sometimes I would just go into the feeling state of my body and disassociate from where I was. So I want to just add that this is different than that. This is where I'm staying present with myself and listening into to create a sense of connection and not to disassociate and to go offline where I'm in another place and incapable of sort of dealing with what's happening around me. So That's a lot of information. And I'm just going to invite you, if you are watching this, to move a little bit with me. And this could be done laying down, it could be done seated. I'm sitting on a block right now, just showing you that. And I'm going to stay seated for this. I'm going to back up just a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to, with really free flow movement, just invite the river of my spine to start to have some mobility. So free flow movement is movement that is not controlled and clamped down upon. I could do bound flow movement where I'm really controlling it, or I can do free flow movement where there's a sort of almost like childishness in the movement, or childlikeness, or immaturity in a very innocent and free way. That's a lot of weird things to say about movement, but I'm not locking down, I'm not clamping. I'm just curiously following what's interesting. What am I feeling in there? And if it's easier to close your eyes, to go in, take out the visual, that's a lot easier to go into feeling with the eyes closed, or even just dropping your gaze is a way to do that. Yeah, when I was first spending some time, not my first, maybe some in one of the layers of my life where I was doing seated meditation, I found it really hard to sit still. I'm a dancer, movement is my thing, and I'm very accustomed to feeling all of my body and bringing my awareness into my body. So sometimes I would just do a little bit of micro movement in my meditation, and micro movement that would not necessarily be visible to other people. Like you could move very small. It can just be the breath, the growing and shrinking of the breath, and imagining your body kind of like a bubble that's getting bigger and smaller. Or it could be more big. But often if I was on my own doing my meditation, that the micro movement would take me into a full-on movement exploration, kind of defeating the purpose. So now in my life, I'm also working with stillness meditation and finding the mountain pose and feeling my whole body in mountain. But for right now, I want to offer this idea of awareness, cultivating awareness and cultivating a relationship with your own body through micro movement. So I've been doing my spine kind of, and you can see that my head is floating. If I try and lock my head, it feels really weird. So I want to keep that sensation of a lot of movement is really initiating down here in my belly, in my pelvis, in my tail. And I want to see if I can allow that movement to continue to rise up through my spine, all the way through the crown of my head. So that's one idea. I'm going to throw my arms into the mix. So I recently had a injury from pole dancing. I think it's the interosseous membrane in here, which is between those two bones of radius and ulna. So my hand is fine and strong if I'm like that, but as soon as I start to spiral it, I feel different things. So I'm just going to invite this idea of micro movement into my hands. And as soon as I invite, and it's pretty big, you can see it, right? It's super easy to see, but let's say I make it a little bit smaller. It could just be this. I could be walking down the street and just letting my hand do its own little thing. But I actually want it to be a bit bigger because I want to hydrate and differentiate more within my forearms and my hands. And so an idea from Laban movement analysis is this connection. It could be, we often say the scapula-pinky connection. And I like to add the collarbone into that. So it's like this whole quadrant of my body, this whole quadrant is in relationship. And as soon as I start moving something here, that is also stimulating down into the fascia, into the connective tissue, into everything, all the way going into the organs, into my lungs, into my heart. So letting movement sort of awaken this long relationship. I was listening to a podcast of, or maybe I was reading something. It was Daniel Ingram anyway. It was either Michael Taft and Daniel Ingram or just Daniel Ingram. And he was talking about like one of his meditation retreats where he had to feel his feet and he couldn't feel them at all. So he went and walked on like stones to feel his feet for days on end. So I'm inviting you to feel your hands and to feel how they relate in through your forearm, your upper arm, in through your chest, in through your lats, in through your back, but thinking of them as one whole connected system. So as I sort of wake up and bring my hands online, there's a sense of breath support. There's an underlying sense of core support. And also my spine is kind of snaking and dancing within this space. So for me, it's, if I had done the tissue prep and done this kind of movement beforehand, I probably would not have injured that interosseous membrane, that space that goes between those two bones and all the sort of fascia and connective tissue in there. So it's been about a week, and I've been doing a fair amount of hands-on little circles, trying to break up that stuff, but also getting into the micro movement and just testing it out. How does it feel now? And I can feel that it's not back to 100%, but it's probably around 60, which is actually a huge change in what was going on. So yeah, awakening the whole system of my whole body to come together to work to hydrate and renegotiate what's going on in between those two bones. So that's what I say for me, healing fascia injuries, soft tissue injuries. I have found that the most effective ways have been working with micro movement, working with the aliveness of my own body and bringing that online. So it could even just be like this wiggle. And a lot of micro movement, we're thinking in terms of sort of kinetic chains of movement, like it starts somewhere and then it goes somewhere else, and then it comes out to another place. Finding these successive movement patterns that initiate in a place, travel through places, move out to another place. And ideally, it's moving way beyond us. So it's not just I'm in this little system moving, but I'm moving so far out that it's expanding well beyond my bubble. Letting me slow down. Obviously, maybe not obviously, I am a speed demon. So slowing down and coming into myself is a hugely important practice for me to be able to make skillful decisions in my life and to be as present as I can in the things that I've chosen to do and what I'm doing. Yeah, so micro movement as the key to the universe. Just kidding. It's one of them. I think it's Moshe Feldenkrais that says sometimes just one tiny, tiny change can make a huge ripple outward. So within our systems, within our bodies, if we can find some little area of softening, that can have a huge release in our bodies. And it's a concept that I keep hearing come up in the sort of meditation world about grasping onto things and holding on and trying to get it. This is more about allowing and listening and trusting that whatever's coming up, that is right. There's not a right and wrong about this. It's about fluidity and motion. And that fluidity and motion is hydrating fascia, it's hydrating organs, strengthening bone. It's bringing a coherency to the systems of your body. Or maybe it's not. But in my experience, that is the joy and the wonder of it all, is that I feel way more connected. I feel more strong. I'm capable of doing my other things, my more intense things, because I've spent this quieter time in more healing zones with the tissue in my body. So that is my short bite size, not as short as I thought it was going to be, 13 minutes and 26 seconds. I hope that you come back. Please like and subscribe. Check out the Laban space, inner outer space stuff. And that's it. Cheers.